Good morning. Today is February the 20th, 2025, and this is video 16. And the topic is going to be widow brain and widow wallet, the topic of money when you're a widow. In this case, fear isn't really my wedge. Fear isn't really not exactly a part of this, but it's more like feeling sorry for yourself and saying, I deserve this. I deserve to replace my old area gardens with 7 new area gardens. How many do I have? One, two, let me think, three. I have about 7. I replaced older ones, and come to find out a year or two later, the company went out of business. Amazon is still area gardens. They're these little things with pods, and it's aquaculture, and you can grow herbs inside your kitchen, which is handy. I can still use them. Amazon has a third-party vendor that's supporting them. But the point is, when you lose a spouse, you wind up spending money that you probably shouldn't be spending. And it's kind of, it's that I deserve it thing. And it seems like I have widows all around me. My neighbor's a widow. My other neighbor's a widow. My good friend in New York, Manhattan, is a widow. Who else is a widow? One, two, three. My friend. It's like 3, and they all happen to be men, which is a little unusual because, statistically, men go first. But the widows that I know very closely right now are all men, and they're doing the same thing, or at least one of them is. He wound up buying another vehicle. He's got a vehicle already. He's got an SUV. He wound up getting a pickup truck. I think it's a lease, so he can probably unload it when he needs or he wants to. But the point is, people have been, and he's admitted to that his kids are about ready to take his credit cards away. And you know who you are if you're watching. It's my neighbor. Um, my neighbor on the left side. My neighbor on the right side, thankfully, is not a widow, but more about him later because he's done me a lot of good deeds, for basically nothing. Um, anyway, the thing is, be careful what you're spending because when you're a recent widow, you're going to want to spend, spend, spend. But guess what? The chickens are come home to roost. They're going to come home to roost. You're going to have to pay off those credit cards. So what I did was, after spending wildly, I managed to pay all of the bigger cards off as much as I could. The ones that are still hanging around are those 2 loans, the Mr. Sparky loan and the Terminex loan. That's $18,000. It's not so easy to pay back, but I have a plan of how to do it, which involves going back to work, basically. So I have a plan, and the other stuff is gone. The Care Credit, it's all gone. The extra Visa, I had extra Visa cards. I got rid of them all. Care Credit, I got rid of them all. Paid off the extra. I have extra, meaning I only have one. I only think you need one. I don't think you need 6 credit cards. That's how you get in trouble. One credit card you need because if you're going to buy something from Amazon or rent a car or do anything on the internet, you're going to need at least one. And I don't believe in American Express because you got to pay it off every month. Really? No. So forget him. Forget them. Just one Visa card is perfectly fine and pay it off. And the thing is with credit cards, you can't get into too much trouble because as soon as there's fraud, they shut it down immediately. And you are not responsible. The other thing is, and I need to look this up, in New Jersey, at least, and I'm not sure about community property states, if it's any different. I haven't looked it up yet. I meant to, but I got distracted. In New Jersey, credit card debt is unsecured debt, and it might be true everywhere. I'm not sure. It might be true everywhere. I'm not sure. But as long as your name is not on the card in the sense that you're a co-owner, if you are an authorized user, you're still not responsible because it's not in your name. You're put on there as an authorized user. That doesn't mean you're part of the credit card. You're not a co-owner. If you are a co-owner, you're screwed. But if if your spouse had a lot of credit card debt as mine did, guess what? You don't have to pay it back because it's unsecured debt, meaning you are not responsible. Now they're going to come after you and try to tell you, oh, when are you plan to pay this off? And I'm like, never, never. Because if you keep reading on the letters that they're going to send you, it says we are forced by law to tell you that you're not responsible for this debt. Then what the hell are you sending me a letter for? My husband had a car that wasn't paid off yet. A Cadillac wasn't paid off, was on a loan. He had umpteen credit cards, which were really up in the sky because he wasn't a good money manager. Let's put it that way. That's putting it mildly. But he had all these credit cards, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I checked into it, and I asked a couple people who were bankers, and they gave me the right information. And they said, you're not responsible for that. So I heard tell there was another woman that I heard of. Actually, she was the mother of a student when I was tutoring at the community college a few years ago, which I stopped doing, but was a student, and she was telling me her mother just lost her husband, her father, the student's father. And I said, hopefully she's not paying off his credit cards. She said, yeah, she already paid some. I said, tell her to stop. You don't have to do that. It's not, you don't just tell her to check into it if she doesn't believe me. It's unsecured debt, which means you don't have to pay it off unless your name was on the credit card also, not as an authorized user. That's different. That's what I was on one card. I was an authorized user, meaning I could use the card, but I wasn't on the account. It was not a joint credit card account. You know how you have joint bank accounts and you have joint credit cards? Well, we didn't have that. We never did that. We always kept everything separate. Fortunately, that saved me a ton of money. What didn't save me a ton of money was overspending. And again, that's stop, drop, sit down, take 5 deep breaths, and wait a day or 3, preferably 3 days. Stop whenever you get a phone call or one of these emails or text messages or somebody's trying to invade your world. One of these scammers is trying to penetrate your bubble, trying to get to you so they can wrangle money out of you. Stop, drop, sit down, and wait. Make a phone call. Make 3 phone calls. Wait 3 days, preferably 3 days. Stop, drop, sit down, and take 5 deep breaths, and then decide what you want to do after a day goes by. Wait a day. The world's not going to end. And guess what? If the world does end, nobody's going to care about whatever this problem is. Ain't nobody going to care if the world's ending. Who cares? Take me now. So it doesn't really, a lot of things, most things are not urgent, and they're going to try, these scammers will try to make you think it's urgent. The house is going to burn down. You're going to be covered in sewage. Spend. No. And you yourself could be, that's scammers, but sometimes we're our own worst enemies when we look at something on the internet or we see something in a magazine or somebody else has something. Usually it's on the internet, truthfully, or TV. And you think, gee, I would like to have that. Or you look at your old area grow gardens and you think, boy, these are from like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They're skanky looking and I should get new ones. And I did. And I haven't even used them that much, to be honest with you. So did I need them? No. Were they nice to have? Kind of. Did they assuage my stress? Not really. Actually, spending money creates more stress because the person who's deceased, he doesn't have to pay off his credit cards because he's deceased and it's unsecured debt. And you don't have to pay them off either unless your name was on the account as a joint account. Then you're responsible. But if you had separate credit card accounts or you were just an authorized user, you don't have to pay that card. And so don't do it because they're going to try and worm it out of you. But they have to tell you, by law, we have to tell you you're not required to pay this money. So what the hell are you sending me a letter for? I had one company, I think it was the car loan company, saying, well, we couldn't sell the car for what the loan was worth. And I said, then you overpriced it. Not my fault. And they kept hounding me. And then they had a letter from a lawyer. A lawyer. I'm supposed to be afraid of a lawyer. Screw you. Who cares? I have friends who are lawyers. They're not scary people, and they tell me the right things because they're friends, they tell me the real information, not your pressure. They kept sending me letters like, what are you going to do about this loan? I said, nothing. And I didn't answer them. Finally, after all these letters, and then finally a letter from a lawyer comes. And I said, you know what? I said this on a voicemail to them, to their phone number. And I said, listen, stop harassing me. This is harassment. You're sending me letter after letter. You know and I know that I don't have to pay this loan back because my name wasn't on that loan. So I don't know what you think you're doing with wasting. You're wasting your time and you're wasting the court's time. And what's worst of all, you're wasting my time. That's what I told them. You're wasting the court's time and you're wasting my time, which is even worse. All right. So cease and desist. I said, because you know and I know that I'm not really responsible for this debt. you know. So eventually that shut them down. They stopped contacting me. They stopped harassing me. I said, this is considered harassment. Unless you want a countersuit for harassment of a widow, you better cut it out. I don't want any more letters. I don't want any more phone calls. Stop. And they did, because they knew damn right well that I was not responsible for a car loan that my name was not on. I mean, I'm glad now with everything that's transpired since then. I'm glad I kept my maiden name, because who knows what's going to happen with this administration. They want married women to change their names to show up with their birth certificate to prove they're them. Really? Who carries their birth certificate around? We're in a strange world, but that's kind of a different topic that I don't want to get sidetracked onto. So this was about Widow Brain and Widow Wallet. Be careful about what you're spending, because you're going to want to comfort yourself by spending money. And guess what, honey? Those chickens are going to come home to roost, because you're still alive and you're going to have to pay back your credit cards. So don't blow up your credit cards. As you know, and this is where I think Hope and Larry on the channel Under the Median on YouTube, Under the Median, Hope and Larry, where a real couple. This is not actors or anything. They're real people. They live in, I think, Illinois. I think they're somewhere in the Middle West. And they're really cool people. And you know what? I sometimes think, I look at the things that I'm looking at on YouTube. I look at Hope and Larry, who are so the frugality is their thing. And they're all about look at the money you actually do have and see how you can spend it intelligently and wisely and frugally, so that you can have money for the things that you really need or really, really want. So what they're doing is they're not saying, it is kind of austerity in a way, but not really, because their their attitude is save your money for what you really need and really, really want, and save it up and pay cash, which is a really sensible way to behave financially. On the other side of the coin, Scammer Payback channel, or they feature all of these people mostly from India and Pakistan, unfortunately, sometimes Bengal. I mean, that whole subcontinent area, they feature all these scammers who are making millions of dollars by cheating retired people, mostly Americans, British, and sometimes they hit Australians. So all the English speaking Western world, who they perceive as being wealthy. And we're really not all of us. There's 1% are wealthy. That's why they're called 1%. But the rest of us are scraping by, paying our bills as best as we can. We are not wealthy. Maybe we're wealthy to you, but in our economy, it's not. What we make, in our pension and Social Security, it's enough to live on, and maybe buy an area garden once in a while. So it's not great wealth, but they think it is. And these two opposites, these two extreme opposites. The one couple is trying so hard to be good managers of the money they do have, and the other people are trying to steal from people like them and like me. They're trying to steal from honest people who really want to manage their money well and do sensible things and do the right things and live a moral life. And these are the people they're coming after. Talk about two opposites. So those are the YouTube channels that I like so much. And be careful I'm looking at my notes, be careful of spending sprees. Be careful of the I deserve this thing. Again, stop, drop, and sit down. Take 5 deep breaths and wait a day or 3 days, preferably 3 days. Talk to some people on the phone. Friends, not strangers. Talk to friends, call family members who you trust. Anybody who's kind of sensible about money, and talk it through with them before you lay down that credit card or sign that loan or whatever it is to lease a car or a truck or an area garden. Well, I didn't lease them, I bought them, but that was kind of stupid. So be careful of big expenditures like that, because they seem to be comforting at first, and they are a distraction. They can distract you, but momentarily. And then the day will go by. You will wake up the next morning and you'll think, well, I still feel crappy because I lost my spouse. I'm still lonely. The house is still freaking empty. There's not enough noise in the house. And, that was another widow. Let me see. One who's from Manhattan, one who lives in upstate, one who's next door. Who's the other ones? Well, thank God that's it for now. But then there's a couple more women that I know, but I'm not really friendly with them. But there's a lot of widows around, and I'm not really close to all of them. People that I in my neighborhood or that I know in my circle of humanity. There's a couple I'm very close with, and I can see what they're doing. And one of them is spending money like it's made out of toilet paper. Stop buying vehicles. Stop buying trucks. Because eventually that chicken's going to come home to roost. Walk, walk. So that's the warning is be careful of widow brain and widow wallet. And the other part of widow wallet is people think you have more money than you actually do. And they will, and this is the subject, should be another video because this one's getting too long. Be careful of spending. That's the main theme of today's video. Be careful of how much you spend because it'll make you feel good for maybe 15 seconds. And after that, the bill's going to come due and that charge card is going to, or credit card is going to come due. And unless you die and it's unsecured debt and your survivors don't have to pay it back, if you still go on living, which most of us seem to be doing, you're going to have to pay it back. You're going to have to pay it back. I'm very proud of myself that I paid off everything except for one card that I'm currently using. It's an active card, and that one got too high too. But I was trying to buy things that would save me money, like Hope and Larry have this generator that they like, so I bought one of those. And then I bought these rolling radiators thinking, why should I heat up the entire house with the gas when I'm only in one room? So my purchases, which were rather large recently, they were actually intended to work towards frugality. But in the meantime, I have to pay off the card. So the card got bigger than I wanted it to get. So I have to pay that sucker off. And again, I have a plan. Everything is on a plan. So just be careful about spending money. The theme of the day is be careful that you're not spending money to try and comfort yourself because the comfort will only last, I swear, for 15 seconds. And after that, boom, here come the bills. Boom. It's better to reserve the money for a particular purpose. Maybe you want to save up for a trip. Maybe you want to go somewhere next year or something, but you got to save, you're going to have to save the money. So don't spend out of sadness. Sadness spending is never a good idea because the bills come due and you're not going to want to have to pay them off.